Hey, everybody, we're live with the Combatcast. It's the man they call Dave and Chevy, and we're going to hit you with that intro, and we got a lot to talk about, so let's get to it. Whew, all right, man. So much to talk about this week, but before we do anything, tell them what we got coming up.
All right, MMA is getting a little bit light as we get towards the end of the year, so we're going to be working on a best of the year show for you guys, and then probably doing some MMA Jeopardy, maybe going for an interview or two here. So no more cards really coming up.
No, not at all. Just this week's fight night, but I don't know. It was an interesting way to end the year, but we can talk about that. If you want to do the news first, though, we can get right to that.
Sure. We'll get right into it with MMA judging. Obviously, we had some issues this weekend. A couple different issues. We'll start with the Bellator issue. Stotts got a win over Sabatello in the main event. But it was a split decision. One of the judges had all 5 rounds for Sabatello.
Right.
First time that's ever happened, I believe, in the history of the sport.
Yeah, so we had the privilege. We were watching it with a guy who actually trains a UFC fighter. And none of us saw that coming. Like, we were very confused. Sabatello really impressed me in this fight. Just his wrestling is, he's so good and he doesn't get tired. And I thought his striking was, okay with Stotts. At least I didn't feel like
front kick was good.
Yeah. So I was impressed, but this judges is crazy, man. And one of these judges ended up being one of the judges on this UFC card.
Doug Crosby, I believe that's his name. Yeah, he ended up had some more controversial decisions.
We flew this motherfucker in for this, right? From Connecticut to Nevada, it's crazy.
He's another one. He scored the fight for Patty in his fight, and I believe he scored the fight for Jan in the Ankalaev and Jan fight too. So a lot of questionable decisions from this one guy. No accountability, of course, because athletic commissions don't have any accountability when it comes to judging.
So it didn't get the most attention, but I actually thought, and again, I'm not the guy's biggest fan or anything, Sabatello, I thought that was the actual worst decision of the weekend. I thought Stotts clearly won, but lost, rather.
Oh, you thought Stotts lost. So, initially I did too. And then I've seen a bunch of clips and I heard Morning Combat talking about this. And I think they're right. So Sabatello, he had a lot of control time.
Okay.
A lot of takedowns, but he really didn't do any damage. He didn't go for submissions, and that's true. He really did just try to lay on top of Stotts. So I guess that's where they're going with that. And Stotts landed the heavier shots when they were on the feet, the more impactful and damaging shots. So
we're going to talk about the UFC 282 card in a bit, but just jumping here ahead a little bit. I was with, you don't know this because we haven't talked, but I was with my buddy Pete live. I ended up staying home. I watched it live. And I said to him, Patty might win this fight. And here's why. I said, that final round, which I know Dana said was a terrible game plan by Jared Cannonier, but all the focus has been on Patty winning it. And by the way, I don't think Patty won the fight. But I said he might win this fight because I gave Gordon clearly the first round. I think Patty edged out the second round in my mind. And then in that third round, I thought Gordon used a lot of control time, but Patty had like one little takedown, but it was really nothing. And the majority of that fight was Gordon holding up against the cage.
Yeah.
But I said to Pete, I said, we don't know how the judges are going to score that because they don't care, some of these judges. And then Cormier would go on after the pay-per-view and talk about how he thought Gordon won too. But he says there seems to be a thing now with judging where they're not favoring the control time as much as they used to, which is fine, but we should probably know about that, and that should be a little more clear. So just since it has to do with judging, I find that to be interesting. And I don't feel a lot of people are talking about it because I think the big story here is fuck Patty, and then Patty didn't do himself any favors the way he acted. No. But I do think there's an interesting story here when you compare the Bellator fight card and you compare this one to what does control time mean in MMA right now? And I think that's a discussion to have at some point.
Right. Obviously, the criteria for judging needs to either be clear or be changed. And I think also it would help, going back to the accountability thing, if these judges, they were part of a post-fight press conference or something, or they did little notes that, came out about why they scored a round a certain way. Like that would, at least fighters would know what they're looking for and what needs to be done, And
I guess one of the things when I brought up that Crosby flew in from Connecticut to Nevada, part of me also thinks like, we don't have any other judges that are like around, and you're like, is there a shortage? Like, why did we need to fly to that? Clearly he's not elite, so I don't get it. That's confusing to me, but
I don't understand that either.
But I feel like we talked about this for a while. So let's talk about some other news subjects.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit about Patty. Is he turning heel now? Yes. So he had that whole thing with Ariel, right? Did we talk about that last week?
We might have touched on it a little bit, but yes, basically he shitted on Ariel, saying that he's a content creator, not a journalist, and he wants to be paid for his time. Ariel, Sugar Sean talked about this, and he said he thought he was surprised Patty came out so hard against Ariel. You can't hate on Ariel for doing this. Like, this is his job. And his point was that if I'm going on a podcast, I don't really get anything out of it. If they don't have any followers or anything, I'll ask for some money. He said, because that's my time. But with Ariel, he has such a large audience. It's really kind of a mutual thing. Now, Helwani was insulted that someone asked for money. I guess, I mean, again, we don't have Helwani's audience. I've had people ask for money, so it's not insulting. But I think it's kind of really just depends on the people. Like, I mean, I think that was a great point by O'Malley that, like, if you're both, it's a mutual thing, you're getting something out of it. Otherwise, it sounded individual. People want to ask us for money, you can ask. Probably not going to get it. But you know what I mean? And then, like, at the same time, unless you're, like, I feel like you could do something for us. It has to be a mutual exchange and everything. Yeah. Going down a bit of a rabbit hole there. Pimblett obviously shitted on Helwani.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of Helwani. I think I get what Patty's saying when he calls him a content creator. He's an instigator. Everyone knows he's an instigator or whatever. But he is a journalist, and he is one of the, if not the best MMA journalists that we have. With that comes a lot of being in the limelight, obviously, and he has a personality, and he doesn't like to be disrespected, so he goes at guys. Yeah. That's his prerogative. It's probably my least favorite thing about him. But so that whole thing happened, but I don't fault Ariel for his take on the matter. I think Patty handled it, poorly. Again, that's not something you get that upset about. And
there was stuff too. Ariel basically produced like voicemails and stuff too. Yeah, because he did.
He's organized. The man is organized.
And so basically, Patty had wanted to get together with him, and he said, "Hey, you know how I am. I got some stuff going to talk to my manager." Then he showed the text from his manager. He said, "We had some paid gigs, but if you want to pay him," and that's when Helwani was insulted. But I mean, Pimblett had basically, like he just said basically that Helwani, like he didn't want to even do a show, and Helwani, which wasn't true. Like, and wouldn't contact him. And so it sounds like it was
the voice memos for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a misunderstanding, and I think they decided My guess is what happened is probably Pimwit's manager decided to try to get a payday out of it. Maybe Pimwit had no idea. Maybe he didn't. Helwani got pissed, and Pimwit either listened to his manager or either way just didn't like the fact that Helwani was upset about it. He probably didn't like the reaction. Okay, I'm going to shit on Helwani with Dana while Dana's on the show. Dana will love this. But now it gets back to Helwani, who's rightfully upset. Yeah. And it becomes a thing. And again, I find Helwani's interview style, sometimes I just find it frustrating. Like somebody will not answer a question, but he's going to keep going. Some people love that because he's going to keep going back. He's going to keep going back until he gets an answer. And I don't. I personally, like you, I find it a little frustrating. Like, all right, he said fucking no. We just move on to something. But.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so Patty didn't start the week off, in anyone's good graces. And then he had that fight, this was a good measuring stick for Patty. He's getting all this Connor like hype or whatever. And going into the fight, we'll get into the fight more when we go through the card, but was not the performance that he needed with all this hype he's getting at this level. He should be dominating Jared Gordon. He did not dominate him and arguably, I'll be nice, arguably lost that fight. And instead of, being respectful like Jan was in his case, he denied any facts that he could have lost that fight. And that is very cringy to me and not a big fan of that. And that his stock definitely dropped with me for sure.
And a little out of character in the sense, too, if you look at the fights that he's won or he's finished, he's actually talked about he felt like he had a bad performance. Yeah. So how did you not have a bad performance here then?
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Last week, we liked this guy with the whole dog, where he talked about his dog pooped on a guy. I don't know. I mean, it was funny because I happened to catch an old clip. It was just in my feed on one of his Instagram things where he talked about mental health and he had a friend who committed suicide and everything like that. And I'm just trying to think, like, okay, it's still the same guy. Did he just handle this shit really bad? And then I thought about it, like, if he gets a fight in the UK and he has a awesome performance, like he's probably popular again. So
right. So here's what I think the problem is. I think that he realized, maybe got a bit of a wake up call at the level of skill that he's at in this UFC, right. And maybe some insecurities are coming through with these people saying you didn't win that fight, and he's a little bit insecure about his skill set at the moment. And that's what caused him to be defensive and say, there's no way, he just held me. Mm-hmm. He didn't even say the fight was close. I mean, you have to at least acknowledge that it was close, but anyway, I'm not writing the guy off and saying that he's garbage and he has no skills or whatever. The UFC is bringing him along. I'm excited to see who they give him next. Mm-hmm. But that was not a good performance from him. And post-fight interview was bad. He tried to make a joke with Rogan about the aerial thing. Joe wasn't having it. So, it was not a good showing from Patty for sure. But
no, absolutely not. It was not good for Patty.
Move on to another fight we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, I believe we're both fans of Darren Till, but he lost again. Another knee injury. What does the UFC do with Till now? Do you think he's going to get cut? This is 3 losses in a row.
I don't think he is because Dana said that was his fight of the night. And Dana said that, So I think Till said he's going to take some time off and he still plans on fighting. He's just going to go back to the drawing board. So I think that's honestly where we're at with this. I think it's that simple. It wasn't a great performance. It was a kind of crossroads fight where we all looked at it like that. It's interesting. His opponent there, Duplessis. Yeah, he had talked about, he was very respectful, and he said there was no disrespect to Darren Till, but he says at middleweight, I don't think Till is going to be the contender. He said, I think he needs to find a way to fight at welterweight. I think that's his weight class. I think we're too big for him. And he says, and I don't mean that in a hateful way. Yeah,
he's an in-betweener like Cowboy was, with the between 55 and welterweight. If they had a weight class between welterweight and middleweight, that would be perfect for Till because he has such a struggle to make welterweight at this point. I don't think he's going to get cut either because, like you said, it was fight of the night. But it was alarming how easily he was taken down. I know that he said he tore his ACL. I don't know at what point, but I mean, he wasn't even close to stopping any of the takedowns. He's been, hanging out with Hamzat for a year now. His takedown defense was worse, I think. So I don't know. He needs to do something, some sort of huge reset. I don't know. I hope he figures it out, though. I'm a fan.
Yeah, I love the guy. I hope he definitely gets it together. But tough fight, and Dupuis we'll talk about later. But
great chin on Till too. In that first round, he took a real beating and came back and he just really couldn't pull the trigger. He hurt Dupuis and he couldn't finish him. Arguably, he should have finished him. Yeah,
Dupuis took some hits later on, and
yeah. So he just gassed out. Really, I think was from whooping Till's ass. But
he did. Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to obviously this main event was a split draw, so the title is still vacant for lightweight, and they've already matched up the next title fight, and it'll be Glover versus Jamal Hill. So with that being said, Jamal Hill was already matched up against Anthony Smith, who found out live on the broadcast that he was losing out on that fight. How do you couple questions here. How do you feel about the UFC informing their fighters in such a way? Number one, and what do you think about that matchup and the fact that they're not doing the rematch of Jan and Ankalaev?
Okay. Hold on a second here. Thomas, what's up, guys? Let's fucking go. Let's make money for that last event. Yeah, man, we talked about that Ankalaev, poor Thomas. That was the one. I thought he won, Tom.
Yeah, he got hosed.
Yeah, but as far as the Anthony Smith situation goes, horrible way to find out. Real shitty.
Unprofessional from the organization. That couldn't wait until. Just so unprofessional.
Here's how it works. Honestly, though, they're not thinking about that. They don't give a shit. They don't even probably remember Anthony Smith was on their fucking pre-show. So they're just out here trying to make the fight, and it's a spur of the moment thing. It was very uncharacteristic, actually. I don't, and honestly, somewhat the heart was somewhat in the right place. They were like, okay, fans didn't like this. Let's turn around and give them something exciting in Brazil. This fight card's coming up, and let's make it happen.
Could have waited a few hours.
If somebody was thinking, they weren't. So at the end of the day, it just comes down to a lot of problems with a lot of companies, communication, and just thinking a little bit ahead. Hey, we didn't really, this is kind of disrespectful. And Anthony Smith, that's unfair and a bummer.
I think Anthony Smith is also going to be. I think he said he was going to go to Jamal Hill's camp and help him train for Glover because obviously he fought Glover before, which is just another interesting tidbit.
Yeah, and it's an interesting fight, and it's a great opportunity for Jamal Hill with the draw and the injuries and coming off a victory. He just kind of slips right into the perfect situation that he probably wouldn't normally get, and against a guy like Glover, who I would personally still favor because Glover still looks really sharp at his age, but Glover is getting older. Man, is there ever going to be a better opportunity for Jamal Hill in his career to be light heavyweight champion? This is something else.
And Glover does take shots too. So can he take Jamal Hill shots? Nobody really seems to be able to take them right now. So great opportunity.
It's an interesting style matchup, and it's a great opportunity for Hill.
Right. So Glover's, supremely confident in his grappling skills as he should be. So obviously, I think his game plan would be to take Jamal Hill down and try not to strike with him at all. But guy's a warrior. So he might just stand up.
We'll go on to the next side, but real quick, Thomas, yes, I definitely think Hill has a chance. I would define it as a puncher's chance. I think Glover is the better overall fighter, but Glover's getting older. Like we just said, Hill hits really hard. So, yeah, Hill's definitely got a chance. But you want to get to the UFC 282 card?
Yeah, let's move on to the UFC 282. We're going to pass over the prelims, although they were fantastic. All finishes. We're just going to go right to the main card. So we'll start with Bryce Mitchell and Ilia Topuria.
Topuria looked fantastic here. I actually, one of my fights I was thinking about making was Topuria and Paddy Pimblett. Even though they're in different weight classes, they keep beefing with each other. And I thought if you put it at UK, like it's going to be big money. But I don't know. It was funny. I heard Luke Thomas say it. Like he feels like Topuria is light years better than Pimblett at this point in career. And he said he thinks that it's a way to end Pimblett's career at this point. You do not make this matchup. So I'm really curious to see at featherweight what they end up doing with Topuria next. But he looked as sharp as can be, and I think we picked him last week. I thought I did anyway. But he's just his striking. Wow, or maybe we did pick Mitchell because of the rest.
I picked Bryce.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. But regardless, I was super impressed with Topuria.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that he was dangerous, but I did not think Bryce was going to get dominated in those grappling exchanges like he was. He said he had the flu, so whether he did or he didn't, you still got to turn up on fight night and perform. And, even if you're not 100%, he was not able to. I'm sure he'll be back and look great. But, yeah, Topuria is a monster everywhere, on the feet, on the ground. Super powerful. I agree with you. I think and Luke Thomas, I think he walks through Paddy at this point. I don't think we're going to see that fight because the UFC is going to be trying to protect him.
I'll throw one fight at you real quick. Topuria versus Calvin Kattar.
That's a great matchup. Big step up in competition for sure.
Yeah. I think he deserves it, though.
Yeah, it's tough, tough to call. Tough fight to call.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see that. All
right, move on. We talked a little bit about it, but Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis.
Dricus du Plessis was a tough name for me to say, but I have it memorized now because he deserves it. He looked fantastic here. Tough to watch against Till, but I was super impressed with Dricus. I was actually thinking for another future fight here, maybe him versus Marvin Vettori. Like, I know it's a big step up, but if Marvin doesn't have a title fight or is looking for a fight, I don't know. I'd like to see how he do with a guy Dricus would do a level of that competition.
Two super powerful guys. Yeah. That's a great matchup. We talked about Till. Bummer for him. He couldn't pull the trigger. Needs to work on his takedown defense for sure. Maybe go change a weight class. But as far as Dricus, super powerful when it comes to striking and, just being a strong guy in there as far as grappling. But cardio was an issue. I know he threw a lot of punches and really emptied the gas tank on Till in that first round, but he carries a lot of muscle, so he's always going to have cardio issues for sure. I'm not sure about his defensive wrestling. Marvin might eat him up, but yeah, I'm excited. That's a big step up in competition for him. Maybe a little bit too much, but I'd watch it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, we'll move on to Alex Morano versus Santiago Ponzinibbio.
Yeah, Morano. That's the guy I thought he was going to pull it off, sort of. And boy, he was looking great here too. But Ponzinibbio, third round, his corner tells him, "You're losing the fight. You need this," and he comes out like an animal. And man, he looked like the Ponzinibbio of old right here. Like it was something to watch. And Alex, for taking the fight on short notice, still got his win bonus too. So I thought that was kind of a cool thing. Ponzinibbio, I was trying to think of a fight for him. I actually came up with Michael Chiesa because I don't think they fought, and they're both in that welterweight ranks. Chiesa brings more wrestling to the table, so I think.
Oh yeah.
But Ponzinibbio has that power too. So.
Yeah, that's a good matchup for sure. Tough for Ponzinibbio. I think if Michael Chiesa comes in with his mind right, he'll take Ponzinibbio down, and Ponzinibbio won't be able to get back up. But as far as the fight with Alex, I did think that Ponzinibbio was going to win via TKO in the third round or whatever. But I thought it would be because Alex got tired from no camp, but he was in phenomenal shape. He looked great. As you said, he was winning the fight for sure. He just got caught with that Ponzinibbio power. the slow motion replay and his jaw going crooked, and it was a bad shot for sure. But good for Santiago. I'm excited to see what both guys do next.
Absolutely.
Move on. Another fight we talked about. Paddy Pimblett versus Jared Gordon.
So, all right. Obviously, I didn't think Paddy won the fight, like we said. But the big, I think a big underlying story here is what does control time mean in MMA right now? Because it's 2 times now with the Bellator card and this UFC card, we saw guys who had control time not end up getting the victory. So, that being said, as far as how to book Paddy in the future, we're looking at a guy who's got a big hype train still, means something out there in the Europe market, UK. But he's tough to book because what's his skill level really at now? Like Jared Gordon, God bless him, is a competent fighter, but he's not, he's nowhere near the elite of the lightweight. So it's not like you can put Paddy against them. He's going to get crushed, I think. I think personally, I thought the Topuria matchup was interesting because of Paddy's size, but I think Luke Thomas made great points that maybe the skill level is just, again, too far different right now. So I say, you know what? Do this in the UK and rematch these two. I mean, I don't think it's that crazy that he can still beat Gordon, and I don't think it's crazy Gordon can beat him. We thought it happened. Do it in the UK. You can kind of build off this. And honestly, the guy's not ready for a step up, and you don't want to kill this hype train yet. So do it in the UK.
You know who has a similar problem to Paddy where it comes to all the hype and, hard to find an opponent that matches his hype is Jake Paul. So just think that's an interesting correlation between those two. But I don't know about a rematch between those guys. I don't think the UFC is going to want to do that. They don't give a shit about Jared Gordon. They don't want him to get any shine off of Paddy. Not a great matchup. I saw a Twitter post. Somebody posted all the unranked lightweight fighters that they would give an advantage over Paddy. It was a long list, and I agreed with a lot of them. But I know Michael Johnson called for a fight against Paddy, and that's a step up in competition for sure. But stylistically, it could be good for Paddy.
Johnson has holes in his ground game. And
he's a name.
And he's a name. So,
but I mean, Paddy does take shots. Obviously keeps that chin up high, and Michael Johnson can knock people out. So it's a good matchup, I think. So maybe that is next. Paddy won. They want to keep moving him up. That's a step up.
Yeah, I like that matchup a lot, actually.
All right, move on to the main event: Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev.
So here's another one. I was with Pete and I called too. I said, although again, I thought Ankalaev won, but the way it finished and the closeness of some of these rounds, and I said, if Ankalaev got a 10-8 here, but Jan got a couple close rounds, I'm like, I could see this being a draw. We got a majority draw. It was again. I thought Ankalaev won the fight, though. I thought he did enough to win. But at the same time, I honestly wasn't really too upset. Like with the Paddy one, I definitely thought, Paddy lost. But like with this, like the draw didn't. I don't know. I just thought Jan did it.
It's the fact that it's a split draw that is the problem.
And the scorecards.
Yeah, it goes back to the MMA. Is one guy had it for Ankalaev, one had it for Jan, and the other one had it as a draw. So not one judge saw the fight the same way, and that's the problem. With the judging, but
absolutely. But as far as future fights with these guys, I guess here's another one you can rematch. I don't really know what you do with them because Glover and Jamal now have the title fight, and a lot of the other key fighters are injured. So,
Dana was super low on this fight. He said it was terrible. I thought I don't remember that. I didn't watch it back, but I didn't think it was terrible. On the feet, It was technical with Jan going for those leg kicks that were clearly effective against Ankalaev. The end of the fight was a little bit boring. But with the grappling, but Ankalaev, that's what he had to do because he was compromised. So, I don't see how that was a 10-8 at the end. I think a draw was fair, but judging is weird. I don't know what's next for both guys. If I was them, I'd be very upset that they're not just running it back for the title or one of them fighting against Glover. But I don't know. Respect to Jan for thinking that he lost. I thought he probably lost. It was either draw or he lost. I didn't think he won, but respect for him for telling them to put the belt on Ankalaev. That's lots of honorable shit from him. So
absolutely. All right, man. We're 30 minutes in. Let's get to this.
Yeah, let's cruise through.
Here, we're doing.
Let's cruise through this last UFC card of the year. It's UFC Fight Night, Strickland versus Cannonier. I'm just going to go over some prelims really quick. We don't even need to talk about them, just some notable fights. Brian Battle. Oh, first of all, you're welcome for being the one that has to pronounce all these names because this is a freaking tough one. So this whole card is full of tough ones. Brian Battle versus Renat Fakhretdinov. That's probably not how it's pronounced, but Brian had that nice head kick KO over Sato recently. But I think that Renat could be a big deal in the future. He's dangerous everywhere. So we're going to see that one. Said Nurmagomedov versus Sadyuka Kakramanov. I don't know too much about Kakramanov, but Said is a good measuring stick to find out where he is because this is his first fight in the UFC, I believe. So good measuring stick.
On this card too, huh?
Yep. So another one to keep an eye out for name-wise. Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez is fighting Deron Wynn.
Yeah.
How is Deron Wynn still in the UFC? I don't want to be a hater, but the guy is the most boring fighter ever. And then he also just continues to lose. He has like one in his last 4 or something like that.
Yeah, won his last 4. He lost his last one. He did manage to win the one before that, but
he's best friends with DC. So that's how he's doing.
All right.
Julian's exciting. Like he's an exciting, he'll turn it into a brawl, but I think Duran probably nullifies that and we get a decision. But
it's stylistically not a bad fight for Duran.
Yeah, but could be exciting. We'll see. Jake Matthews versus Matthew Samuelsberger. It's a good matchup. Could be a possible fight of the night contender, even though there are some other good fights on this card. All right, move on. Main card. Okay. Cody Brundage versus Michal Oleksiejczuk.
Michal is 17-5-1, 12 knockouts, and has won 2 out of his last 4 fights. Cody Brundage 8-2, 4 KOs, 3 subs. Cody's a finisher. Both of these guys are finisher. I don't know. I think it's a pretty even matchup here. I really like this fight, actually. I'm going to go with Cody. I'm a fan of his, and I'm going to say he gets it done. I'll say TKO round 3.
Yeah, Cody lost a decision in his UFC debut, but has 2 finishes since, including a KO over Trajan Gore, who I've talked about before. I'm high on him. He's a KO machine. I think Michal is a KO machine, though.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with Michal. I think round 1 KO.
Well, you and Thomas both have that, so obviously I'm the outside guy here. That's fine. I might be going by heart. I like Cody, so we'll see what happens. So.
All right, move on to another fight of the night contender for sure. Drew Dober versus Bobby Green.
Yeah, I forgot to write down Bobby Green's information here, but Bobby Green is a guy that's been around forever. So here we go. Let me just do Bobby real quick. Bobby Green is 29, 13-1. 10 KOs, 8 submissions, 11 decisions. This guy's had submission of the night, performance of the night, fight of the night 3 times. Bobby had like a big run in the pandemic too, where he was taking on a bunch of fights.
Yeah, him and Kevin Holland were definitely like MVPs for.
But I like Drew Dober here, like 25-11, 12 KOs, 6 subs, 7 decisions. I think Dober, he's powerful. Like he's powerful with his wrestling, he's powerful with his strikes, and I think overall he's just a better all-around MMA fighter. Like, I think Bobby Green's real slick with that striking, but I don't think it's enough. I don't think it's going to be enough here. I like Dober. I'm going to say because Green likes to bring the fight too, that this is going to end in round 2. TKO, Dober.
Yeah, Bobby's super slick on the feet. And I agree with you that Drew is probably the better all-around fighter because he has wrestling skills for sure. He also has one of the best chins in MMA. I mean, the fights he's been in, he's taken tremendous shots and come back from. So I think, with Bobby being slick on the feet, Drew will try to do some wrestling. But I kind of think that Bobby's going to be on the feet enough and land enough to get a decision win over Drew Dober.
All right, Thomas agrees too. So
I would assume that Bobby's an underdog, though. I don't know the betting lines, but I would assume he's an underdog.
Yeah, I think this is one we're all it's a sweep. So love all Bobby, but I just feel like Dober's too much.
All right, we'll move on to Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres versus Julian Erosa.
Julian Erosa is 28-9, 11 KOs, 12 subs, 5 decisions, 3 fight win streaks. Alex Caceres is 19-13-1. Don't let that record fool you, though. He's fought a lot of tough competition, and he's been really good in his last fights. I think he might have lost his last fight. I'd have to look up, but he's got 3 KOs, 7 subs, 9 decisions. He's always a guy that, is ready to fight. That being said, Erosa on this 3-fight win streak, a lot of finishes here. I think I like Erosa here. I'm going to say Erosa by decision.
Yeah. So I'm always a fan of Bruce Leroy for sure. Like you said, yeah, a bit of a salty record. A lot of those losses are earlier on, and he has been in the UFC for almost his entire career. So it is tough to have a long, win-heavy record when you've fought most of your career in the UFC. So the thing is with him, we never know what we're going to get, what kind of fighter we're going to get with him. He is well-rounded everywhere, but so is Julian. And Julian's a finisher, so I'm going to go with him. I'll say round 3 submission for Julian.
I do want to point out, though, Bruce Leroy does have a loss his last fight, but he was on his biggest win streak before that. He's won 5 out of his last 6. So
right, he's definitely come into his own. He's been looking great for sure.
Yeah, this is one of the closer fights. Yeah, but all
right, we'll move on to Amir Albazi versus Alessandro Costa.
All right, Alessandro's 12-2, 3 KOs, 6 subs, 3 decisions. Amir is 15-1, 4 KOs, 9 subs, 2 decisions. I look at Amir here and I look at both these guys. 9 subs, 6 subs. I think someone's getting subbed. So I'm going to lean towards Amir in this one.
Yeah, they're both excellent grapplers. But until I see Costa versus UFC caliber opponents, I'm not sold on him. So I'm going to go with Amir by decision. I do think their grappling is going to nullify each other and we get a decision. All right, we'll move on to Arman Tsarukyan versus Damir Ismagulov.
All right, Damir is 24-1. All right, 12 KOs, 1 subs, 11 decisions. Arman is 18-3, 7 KOs, 5 subs, 6 decisions. This is a tough fight right here. I think I like Arman, honestly. I think I like Arman by decision. But this one's close to call. What do you think?
So Arman is the dark horse of the lightweight division for me. He's great everywhere. He just needs to stay disciplined and make sure he takes the fight where he has the advantage. And doesn't just get in a brawl. I think he has the advantage on the ground. Damir is a huge problem for the division. He is no slouch. This is a very tough fight, and he has nasty sprawl and brawl. But I think Arman's wrestling will be enough to at least get him down 1 or 2 times, and he needs to take advantage of that. And I think he's going to get ground and pound TKO. I'll say round 2.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Damir's record, though, like 24-1, and he lost like his 6th fight when he was like 5-0. He's on a 19-fight win streak. That's but
he's fighting. He's from Kazakhstan or something. So who knows what kind of opponents he's seeing.
It's a two-way. Arman, with Thomas, somebody here with Arman against Gamrot in that last performance.
Which he lost that fight, but he did look great.
And Gamrot is a beast.
Yeah.
So I'll still stick
underrated.
I'll stick with Arman, but this is a very good. There's a lot of good matchmaking here. This is going to be a sleeper, I think.
Yeah.
But let's get to that main event.
All right, main event: Jared Cannonier versus Sean Strickland.
All right, Strickland 25-4, 10 KOs, 4 subs, 11 decisions. He's coming off a loss over who's now the light heavyweight champion, Alex Pereira. So that looks a little better now. But Jared Cannonier, 15-6, 10 KOs, 2 submissions, 3 decisions. Strickland is a guy that's always going to bring it. I don't know about his MMA IQ sometimes. Like the way he fought against Pereira, he didn't have to do that. Whereas Jared Cannonier is one of those guys to me, I think he fights smart, and I think he's strong in the wrestling, and I think he can hold his own with striking. I like Jared Cannonier here. I think it probably goes the distance, but I like Jared Cannonier here.
I think this is entirely dependent on which Cannonier shows up. If he's hungry, if he's like the hungry killer Cannonier on the come up before he fought Izzy, I think he'll KO Strickland as bad as Alex did.
Okay.
But if he doesn't get Sean's respect early, because Sean's definitely going to pressure him no matter what, I think Sean will break him. So, he needs to lay in those heavy shots early to keep Sean off of him. If he doesn't, Sean's going to pressure him and wear him down. And I'm rooting for Cannonier, but I think Sean gets a round 3 TKO.
Okay, so your question about
I'm wrong.
Yeah, your question: what Cannonier is going to show up? Okay, so Thomas thinks Cannonier gets it done like I do, but he says by KO. So great opinions here, guys. We'll see what happens this week on the final fight night of 2022. I thought it was a great year for fights overall. UFC 281 in particular, but we'll talk more about that on our end of the year show coming up, probably in, I bet you, 2 weeks. I think we might do the Jeopardy first. MMA Jeopardy.
Yeah. Do some MMA Jeopardy next week, maybe. So
Thomas, you're back next week. Anyone back next week, feel free to jump in those comments. We're going to play a little MMA Jeopardy. So should be fun. Anything else? Why don't you just tell them officially what we got coming up?
Yep. So we're going to be working on that MMA Jeopardy, and then we're going to be working on a end of the year show for 2022 best of, and possibly an interview or two if we get all our ducks in a row.
Yep, we got someone we'd love to get on here. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, Thomas, especially you in the comments. Appreciate you, and as always, we'll see you guys at the fights.